मंडळी, मी वीणा बोईटे, SMM एक्झिक्युटिव्ह कमिटी आणि युवा कोऑर्डिनेटर फॉर दिस इयर. माननीय डॉक्टर आनंद देशपांडे, पर्सिस्टंटचे चेअरपर्सन व फाउंडर, आणि संदीप CEO ऑफ प्रेसिडेंट यांचे आणि आजच्या कार्यक्रमात उपस्थित सर्वांचे मनपूर्वक स्वागत. Seattle Maharashtra Mandal was established on 27th April 1993. So we will be completing 29 years soon. आमच्या मंडळाचे घोषवाक्य मंडळाचे यथोचित वर्णन करते. भाषा, कला, संस्कृतीचा पसरे दळवळ, मराठी अस्तित्व अखंड चळवळ, मराठी माणसाचे बक्क पाठबळ, आपले सियाटल महाराष्ट्र मंडळ. सियाटल आणि नजीकच्या परिसरातील सर्व मराठी लोकांना एकत्र आणून आपल्या मराठी भाषेचे, मराठी संस्कृतीचे, मूल्यांचे जतन व्हावे व प्रसार व्हावा हे ध्येय समोर ठेवून SMM ची वाटचाल सुरू आहे. त्याचबरोबर हा संस्कृतीचा वारसा अमेरिकेत वाढलेल्या आपल्या पुढच्या पिढीपर्यंत पोहोचवणे आणि त्यायोगे मुलांना आपली भाषा, संस्कृती आणि साहित्य वगैरेची ओळख करून देणे ही मंडळाचा उद्देश आहे. त्यासाठी SMM अनेक सांस्कृतिक आणि शैक्षणिक कार्यक्रमांचे आयोजन करत असते. ना नफा ना तोटा या तत्वावर मंडळाचे काम चालू असते. SMM is registered as a non-profit organization and this year we have 500 plus members. आपल्या मंडळाचे तरुण वर्गासाठी युवा मंडळी आहे. 12 to 18 इयर्स या वयोगटातील मुले यात पार्टिसिपेट करतात. मोठ्यांच्या वर्षभर होणाऱ्या अनेक कार्यक्रमांमध्ये हे छोट्यांचे मंडळ अतिशय उत्साहाने भाग घेते आणि नेमून दिलेल्या मोठमोठ्या जबाबदाऱ्या पार पाडते. मुलांमध्ये सेल्फ डिसिप्लिन, कॉन्फिडन्स, हसत खेळत त्यांना फायनान्शियल मॅनेजमेंट, युवा मंडळाचे इव्हेंट मॅनेजमेंट आणि कोऑर्डिनेशन याचे धडे मिळावेत हा युवा मंडळ स्थापन करण्याचा मुख्य उद्देश आहे. आज आपला युवा मंडळाचा हा पॅन्डेमिक नंतरच्या काळात 2 वर्षांनी होणारा पहिलाच कार्यक्रम आहे. त्यात आपल्याला पर्सिस्टंटचे डॉक्टर आनंद देशपांडे यांचे मार्गदर्शन आणि सहवास लाभत आहे याचा आम्हाला सर्वांना विशेष आनंद आहे. We are really fortunate to have Anand sir with us today. Now I would like to request President of Seattle Maharashtra Mandal, Savita More, to welcome Dr. Anand Deshpande and Mr. Sandeep.
थँक्यू वीणा. नमस्कार मंडळी, मी शंतनू मोघे. गेली 10 वर्ष सियाटलमध्ये राहतोय आणि सियाटल महाराष्ट्र मंडळाचा ॲक्टिव्ह मेंबर सुद्धा आहे. मागच्याच वर्षी मी पर्सिस्टंट जॉईन केली आणि ह्याच्या मागे खूप हिस्टॉरिकल रिझन आहे. म्हणजे मी 2007 साली पुण्याला होतो आणि मी पर्सिस्टंटला इंटर्नशिपसाठी गेलो होतो. सो तेव्हा आणि आता मला तो योग मिळाला जॉईन करायचा, त्यामुळे मला स्वतःला खूप आनंद आहे त्याचा. एक विशेष सांगायचं म्हणजे गुढीपाडवाच्या मुहूर्तावर आनंद सरांनी पर्सिस्टंटची स्थापना केली. सो हा वर्धापन दिन दरवर्षी अगदी थाटात साजरा केला जातो आणि या मुहूर्तावर तुम्ही इकडे आलात त्याचा जास्ती आम्हाला आनंद आहे. सो सियाटलमध्ये आपण जनरली स्प्रिंग इज इन द एअर वगैरे असं काही म्हणत नाही. म्हणजे आज सोडला तर कालपर्यंत आपल्याकडे हेल स्टॉर्म, स्नो स्टॉर्म आणि वी आर स्टील रीलिंग विथ द विंटर. पण खुद्द देशपांडे सर भारतातून आनंदच घेऊन आले आहेत असं मी म्हणू शकतो आणि त्यांच्या बरोबर आपण हा वसंतोत्सव साजरा करू आणि कार्यक्रमाला सुरुवात करू. मराठी माणसाचं तसं बघितलं ना तर व्यापाराचे वावडे. नोकरी उत्तम मिळाली म्हणजे झालं यावर सगळ्यांचं एकमत, बरोबर की नाही? पण अशा परिस्थितीत एका मराठमोळ्या माणसाने त्या स्वतःच्या जिद्दीवर, परिश्रमाने एवढी मोठी वैश्विक स्तराची इंडियन मल्टायनॅशनल कंपनी उभी केली, ती चालवली आणि यशाचं शिखर गाठलं, याचा आम्हाला प्रचंड अभिमान आहे. आणि हीच कंपनी आज लाखांची पोशिंदी आहे, याचा अजून गर्व वाटतो आणि ते मनाला सुखावतं. Short introduction of Dr. Anand Deshpande, and for our young friends, I'll do it in English. Dr. Anand Deshpande is the founder, chairman, and managing director of Persistent Systems since its inception, and is responsible for the overall leadership, strategy, and management of the company. Anand holds a BTech honors in computer science and engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and an MS and PhD in computer science from Indiana University in Bloomington. He's a distinguished alumnus of both the universities. Anand has served numerous positions at various professional and non-profit organizations, including NASSCOM's Executive Council, the Software Exporters Association of Pune, Pune chapter of the Computer Society of India, and also with members of his family, he has established the Dey Asra Foundation, a non-profit entity which focuses on creating self-employment at scale and importantly transforming job seekers into job creators. So Dr. Anand Deshpande बरोबर खूप गप्पा मारायच्या आहेत. त्याच्या आधी I will show you a short video of Persistent Systems. Again, this is for the young audience so that you know what Persistent System does.
Today, organizations must accelerate their journey to become a digital enterprise. Not only to deliver new levels of efficiency, differentiation, and growth, but to survive. With over 30 years of software engineering leadership, we are Persistent, a global solutions company delivering digital business acceleration and enterprise modernization. We imagine new experiences, revenue streams, and business models for a fully digital world. We engineer tomorrow's products and platforms for enhanced agility and growth. We modernize applications and processes to maximize resiliency. And we manage operations and systems to reduce costs and facilitate growth. We do this all by leveraging our expertise and the latest technologies, including cloud, AI, and automation. Our boutique mindset and enterprise scale, combined with a diverse, open, and innovative partner ecosystem, provides significant flexibility to our clients. We bring together our services, partner capabilities, and industry accelerators to build the right solutions with faster time to market and greater value. We are the industry leader in customer excellence, completely committed to your success. We are Persistent. Get started with us now.
तर मी डॉक्टर आनंद देशपांडे आणि आमचे सीईओ संदीप कालरा यांचं सियाटेलच्या चैत्रांगणात स्वागत करतो आणि रिक्वेस्ट करतो वीणा आपल्या प्रश्न मंजुषेला सुरुवात करा.
थँक्यू शंतनू. चला आता आपण गप्पांना सुरुवात करूया आणि इव्हेंट हा इन्फॉर्मल असेल. पहिला प्रश्न असा आहे डॉक्टर आनंद सर की युवा इज एक्साइटेड टू हिअर अबाउट युअर स्कूल अँड कॉलेज लाईफ अँड कॅन यू प्लीज elaborate how it was and how you enjoyed it.
Okay, first let me thank all of you for inviting me here. I am really overwhelmed. I don't do these kinds of events very often, and it's a real pleasure to be here in Seattle, and also I'm very delighted to see the weather as well. You know, it's a fantastic day, and to see some of you here in a closed room, I'm really very excited, because otherwise we should all be walking in the parks today. It's such a beautiful day. I have had one interaction with the Seattle Maharashtra Mandal during the Bruhan Maharashtra conference, Mandal conference that you had in Seattle. We were a sponsor at that, and I had come for that event. And we are going to be part of this year's BMM as well, which is in Atlantic City. So look forward to meeting some of you who come there as well. So I'm really delighted to be here. Now, regarding my school and college education, let me say, I'm turning 60 pretty soon. So all what I'm going to share with you is too old, probably not terribly relevant for the young people anymore. But I did all my schooling in Bhopal. So for those of you who don't know, Bhopal is pretty much in the center of our country. My father, he's an electrical engineer, and he worked with Bharat Heavy Electricals, which is a large manufacturing company. And I grew up in the Bhopal township, and it was a fairly large township at that time. And I did schooling in a school called Campion School in Bhopal. So, I had a good life. I was not, I did not have to work under some street light or nothing dramatic that happened in my school life. I was just a regular student and nothing dramatic in any way. I was an okay, good student, but never the topper in class or any of those kind of things. But I was relatively active in school and I did all my homework. Beyond that, I don't have much to say about my school. But so that was, I finished 11th in Bhopal in 79. And then I went to Kharagpur. And so I don't know if you're familiar, but in IIT in India, we have this concept of we have to do this JEE, which is a pretty big deal exam that you do after your 11th. And then you get ranked from 1 to whatever. And depending on your rank, you show up at some IIT or what department you get. So my rank was fairly big. It was a 4-digit rank. And this is something, once you get a rank, you remember for your life. So my rank was 1285. And I joined Kharagpur in Aero in 79. And then I did Aero for 2 years and I was able to switch to computer science in 80, so meaning after 2 years. My batch was the third computer science batch from IIT Kharagpur. And IIT Kharagpur had the first computer science BTech batch amongst all IITs in 82. And I was in the 84 batch. So that's my Kharagpur story. Actually in Kharagpur I was, I had figured out in Kharagpur, again it's a very interesting dynamics in IIT. So there are some people who are the toppers, the PGMs as they call them, the guys who are contesting for that. But after one semester, most people know that they have no chance of becoming PGM or anything on the top. And the good thing at IIT is that it's very hard to flunk. Meaning it takes a lot of work to fail IIT. Once you are inside, you will normally be able to get along. So once you figure out that you are not going to flunk and you are not going to be the topper and it just doesn't matter a whole lot, then you kind of can coast very nicely in IIT and it's a beautiful life. I spent 5 years in Kharagpur, which is in the middle of nowhere. There were nobody.
It's prison.
Yeah, it was your own thing and you can do whatever you want. And we had very little adult supervision, which was wonderful at that point of time. And you're an 18-year-old kid, you have a bunch of 2,000 or so other 18 to 24-year-old kids, and we had a ball of a time. And I really enjoyed my life in Kharagpur as a undergrad there. And after that, again, we were all in a very herd mentality model at that point. Our kids are very different. I grew up as I said, in Bhopal. I was in a BHL township. Everybody was an engineer. All their kids ended up doing engineering. So we was a very intense environment. We had either two choices, either you do medicine or you do engineering. There was no third choice when we were growing up in our families. And then so I ended up in Kharagpur. And there again, everybody was most of the people came to the US. That was the most common method. And pretty much anybody from IIT, the systems were very poor. Meaning we had no idea what we were doing, writing letters, getting applications. It was a pretty messy process. But once we figured it out, most people actually got financial assistance to come to the US. And there was this whole idea that, if somebody else is going to pay for your education, why not? So we all showed up here. So that's how I came to the US in 84, August, as a grad student. I had assistantship and I showed up in Bloomington, Indiana, in the middle of nowhere, and had a good time there too. Let me wait for your next question. But let's not, I'm sure they have prepared questions, but if you feel like interrupting me anywhere or asking something, please feel free to do it. I think the intention is, I'll tell you what my objective and what I do, what I like to see happen. See, at the end of this thing, you should carry something with you rather than me telling you my story. My story is not terribly relevant, but what I learned from my story is more useful to you. So, let's kind of keep it that way, and if you have questions or if you want to do something exciting, I'm a big cheerleader in that sense. So I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. I think that opens up the floor. So please feel free to.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
If you feel like asking something, please feel free. But
So I'll continue. Yeah. So just follow up to that. Again, in your journey in 1990, you decided to move back to India. तुम्ही तुमच्या इथली लठ्ठ पगाराची नोकरी सोडून परत जायचा निर्णय घेतला. त्याच्याबद्दल आम्हाला थोडं सांगा आणि how did you come about making that decision and going back to India?
See, okay, let me set a little context there. So I was here from 89 to 90. So I finished my PhD in 89 and I had a good job, meaning I got a job at HP Labs. HP at that time was one of the top companies to work with. HP Labs was it was a very nice place, meaning it would have been one of the best places to work in that context. And when I was in HP, both Bill and Dave, meaning the founders, they were still around, and HP Labs was in the same building that they were, and you could see them once in a while. So it was a very nice place. But the reality is that, two things that kind of got on me. One thing was that, there was a very nice article that came around that time, which was called the X+1 syndrome. I'm sure some of you here have seen that. But there was an article that came in the Economic Times, and we didn't have WhatsApp, but it went around the news, soccer type news all over the place, and this X+1 syndrome. So the Indian guys who would come here in the late 80s, most of them came like me as students. We didn't have this H1B concept at that time. Most people came as students. And the whole idea was, okay, let's go work for some time, 1 year, and then once we get a job, after 1 year, I'll go back. Then they would say, okay, now we got married, now the wife is new, we should spend 1 more year and then go. And then they would say, oh, now I have to get green card, so now that I've got a green card, I should wait 1 more year and then go. And people never went back. And it was so crazy that I have a lot of friends who came before and after me, would buy second-hand cars, rented places, second-hand furniture because, oh, I'm going to go back. But they never went back. They're still here. Right? So I was sort of thinking that, this is kind of stupid life. Either I stay here, in which case I'm going to go buy a boat and anchor myself here. But I'm not going back. I don't want to be in this limbo thing. And then I said, otherwise, if I have to go back, I might as well go back right away. So then the risk is lower and the chances of whatever happens will happen. So I just took a chance, and what happened around that time is that India was changing in 90. So I'll give you my personal motivation. There were many things that happened around that time. One was, of course, the reason I went back was not that I had a thought out plan or any grand vision or anything like that. It was just that, we have a tight family, people at home wanted me back, and I said, if I have to give it a shot, I might as well do it now rather than doing it later. So that was one of the main reasons. And India was starting to happen. And like you have TIE now, in the Bay Area at that time, there was something called CPOP, the Silicon Valley Indian Professionals Association. So there was a gentleman called N. Vittal, who was the secretary DOE at that time. So he had come giving a talk. They were setting up new software technology park schemes. They were encouraging people to come back. And I was at that stage in my life where I thought if I had to take a shot, I might as well do it right now. So people might call it stupid, whatever, but the fact is, nobody thought I had a chance. People were kind of writing us off anyway. But I thought there was very limited risk in a sense. What would happen? The worst case, I could always come back. I had a PhD. I had talked to my faculty professor and said, if I come back, will you give me a postdoc or whatever? So he was pretty cool about it. And so I didn't think too far, but I thought there was an opportunity and I jumped at it. So I just went back and pretty much said, okay, we'll figure out what needs to get done after we got done. Though I did set up the company before leaving from here, and I had a few things going even before I went back. But by and large, it was not like there was a grand plan or anything like that. And the other interesting thing to note is that if you look at India in 1990 and the software industry in 1990, I'll give you some context. The kids find it it's kind of impossible to believe India in 1990. It would take 6 months to get a phone actually. If you wanted a telephone, it would take you 6 months to get a phone. You had to apply and then somebody has to do some things and you get a phone. I had brought in some foreign exchange, not a whole lot, $2,000. Because I had brought in foreign exchange, I was in a priority list, so I could get the phone in 3 months. So that's the situation that was there. So, India was a crazy place in that sense. IT tech was a very alien concept. Everybody was getting exported. And so just to give you one more reference point, they had set up something called software technology park. They set 3 software technology parks. The reason they had to do this was the benchmark for software or export at that time was SEEPs. So most of you will not believe this, but we used to have the SEEPs they had this idea that we'll create an island within India in Mumbai, and there would guards everywhere and customs in and out. So it was very complicated to do business from there. So that was the SEEPs model. So they said do something like that in software. So they set up 3 parks. The first one they set up was in Pune, and the entire park. So there are 3 parks. This is India's software plan. Okay, grand plan from the secretary. 8,000 square feet. 8,000 square feet. 14 companies were given 8,000 square feet into small chunks. So I got 350 square feet. So that's where things started, and this was India's software technology park. So the aspirations were in India at that time were like, it's just unbelievable what has happened in the last 30 years that I've been part of the journey. Meaning when we were starting out, the whole software export India would have been like in single-digit $1 million at best, if at all. And most of it was all like, kind of a little bit crazy. And the vision that we could do such a number was completely uncalled for. Actually, if you want to read more about this, Harish Mehta has written a book recently called The Maverick Effect. The story of NASCOM in some sense. It's just out about a month back. You may want to check it, take a look at it. It's available on Kindle as well. And that will share with you how India in the last 30 years has become a very different place. Now we did $225 billion in software exports and other things. I think exports itself was $225 billion, some pretty ridiculously large number. Today we contribute to almost 8 to 10% of India's exports are software and other things. So the industry has really changed India in a very big way, and I must say I was super fortunate to have been part of this journey, meaning having seen it from the inside. So the only thing I would suggest in terms of what did I learn from this is that it always helps to be in the right place at the right time. I was at the right place at the right time, good things happen.
Yeah.
But there's one corollary to this, and the corollary is that unfortunately you don't know at that time that you're at the right place.
Yeah.
So if you ask me in 91, are you at the right place at the right time? Or if you ask anybody else, they would say, idiot is sitting there, nothing is going to happen from India. It's a totally worthless cause, and you're going to basically ruin your resume and everything else around that. There's no chance of success. Meaning the odds of success, if you asked any of my friends, were less than 0 for first of all. So it was like, this guy is a stupid move. Let us see what he does. And I had a few other people who said they would come back. Half of them didn't come back, and the other half came back, stayed for 3 months, 6 months, and returned back. So it was a kind of a crazy experiment in that sense. But we are persistent at the end. So that's what made us survive. Because there is no other explanation for this.
And the rest, as they say, is history, and creating a page in history every day. Just as a follow-up to that question, Anand sir, is everybody talks about this American dream, right? And back then it was even more profound. Even today the American dream is still profound. Is there an Indian dream? Does that exist today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at India right now, and if you look at, so I think this whole thing in India, right, around 2004, 5, 6 onwards, things have changed dramatically in India. So India today, things, to some extent, we don't see ourselves as a third world country. We don't see ourselves as a laggard in any way. We think we are going to dominate the next 25 years. People in India, especially the young guys, are super confident. I don't think people are chasing American dreams at all. People in India believe that India is the place to happen. And I have said this to other people also. Some of you guys are very fortunate that you are here. But I highly encourage you to come spend 2 years in India. Those 2 years in India will change you in a very positive way in the long term, especially the kids who are there. And I would make this offer to all the kids, and I've done this to other kids as well. You have all come to India with your parents. Okay, that's not much fun. You only do is meet relatives. Okay? So what I have suggested to other kids is you should come, 2 or 3 of you come together and come do a summer with us in Pune. And I can help you find, of course, jobs at Persistent are there, but if you said, no, I don't want to do software, I want to do something completely different, I think there are enough people we know in the network who could give you an opportunity to work somewhere. and you have relatives, don't stay with them, find an apartment, stay someplace, do the scooter, the rickshaw, everything else, and just feel the place, okay? That 1-2 months that you guys do in India will really transform you for your future. There's way too many things that are happening in India that are very different. I'll give you examples of this. So if you looked at, so I've been coming to India, especially Seattle, I've been coming for 30 years, at least 3 times a year for the last 32 years. Every year I'm here 2-3 times a year. And I've been coming to the US every other month now for the last 30 years. Okay? So it's a regular trip. So every time I would come here from India, I used to have a Payme Pantni, then NE118. Okay, I don't know if you know, but these are like Khadaras of the world, right? And every time you come here, you are driving a fancier car than you would drive in India. Your phone in India was like some bulky thing. Here you got something slick and all that. It just everything felt so better here. Right now it's not the case, man. It's much better in India right now. Our life in India is a lot better than what you can live here. My car in India is better than what I can rent here. My phone works much better. My payments are much easier to do in India. All kinds of things now. India is a very happening place. So I think if young people in India today do not believe that they need to come to America anymore, actually, very honestly, we see a lot of action locally, and I'm very bullish about India for the next 25 years. Somebody wants to disagree with me.
So just before we lose this point, I just want to make sure that SMM Yuva team and Shantanu can create some action item about their offer.
Yeah, I was going to say we have to latch on that offer.
No, seriously, I'm suggesting this. And there are, let's do this. No, seriously, I'm suggesting this. And I don't need to be the only one doing it. Meaning, what I'm trying to suggest is that kids, right? You have always come with your parents. Come on your own. Spend 2 months. And I have had several kids who have done this. Don't come alone. Bring 2 or 3 kids together. So you have somebody you can talk to, you can relate to. Find a place you want to live. And there are enough things to do. And anyway, you're not looking for too much money, whatever. You want to do non-profit related things, you want to work in a hospital, you want to work in some other areas, you want to do tech, you want to do some startup. There are enough opportunities there. See, what I've found, okay, let me give you something for the younger kids. I'll tell you 2 things that I find are very interesting and important for kids to know. One is you got to learn how to learn. This is the key skill that you need to figure out. And the second is learn how to network. These are the 2 key skills that you guys should think about. And this will give you a good opportunity to see the world. There is no better way to learn than learning on the field. And when you hang out in India, you will learn so much in the next 2 months. You will see different things. And you will see that in any other country as well. But for you in India, you are not an outsider. You'll mix in very easily. Nobody will notice that you are Barca till you maybe speak, but it's fine. You'll be able to manage it. And it's just cool right now. It's a pretty nice place at the moment.
Veena?
Yeah. What would you guide Yuva to choose their career path along with this, like your experience till now? How do you guide?
It's a very tricky question. Okay, so but I'm now. I have no idea how to guide very young people right now. But let me give you a little bit of context. Okay, so most of you here amongst the young guys are maybe 15 to 18 years or 20 years or something in that. The reality is that most of you will live past 125, maybe even longer, because just the way the science is moving, you guys are going to live very long for many years. So that's the reality. The second thing is that you're going to work for many years also. There's no way you're going to retire at 60. So you're going to work till you are at least 85, maybe 90, whatever. So you're going to work for another 80, 90 years. So here in 2022, you're going to work till 2100, maybe beyond. Right? So whatever you do right now, it's going to evolve. So the reality is, few things that you need to understand is that, well, nobody knows what's going to be relevant 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So you have to adapt to what comes your way and kind of roll along with it. So what is needed is you have to learn the ability to sort of take the punches and keep moving. Which is why I'm suggesting that, the broader you know, the more things you are aware of, the more you are widely read, the more you are widely traveled, you will see the world coming in faster, the changes coming in faster, and you will roll along as you go along. So that's really what I think is critical. And in that context, I suggest that getting to know people, networking with them, finding out what other people are doing, connecting through different things, those skills are going to be very relevant. And what you learn in college, in my opinion, is kind of useful, but it is just a starting point. It's not going to take you too far. So I wouldn't worry too much about, okay, I should only study this or that or whatever. Study what you feel like doing now, but it doesn't matter. In 5 years' time, you'll be doing something totally different anyway, whether you like it or not. So that's the way the world is moving. And if you want to see, like, say, if you were to project 20 years back to now, right? Cell phones, internet, drones, or whatever else you want to pick up, AI, look at AI, what has happened in the last 5 to 10 years. And if you project the next 10 years, it's very clear whatever we are doing now is not going to survive for that long. So this is the reality. So I think, being independent, being on your own, having your own mind, thinking through it, and just kind of getting along is where you're going to succeed. So I don't believe you can make a long-term, lifelong plan on the basis of a career education at the moment. I don't know, if you guys are more tuned to this than I am.
I saw some of it agreeing, disagreeing.
No, please feel free to disagree, because this is a good topic for discussion. But reality is that, see, of course there are you guys sitting in Microsoft and Amazon land here. So yeah, tech and computing is going to be important. But if I were to look at myself at 25, I would think biology is going to be the next future.
You mean like biotech or biology?
See, I think, if you look at it at the end of it, it's going to come down to food, water, energy, climate, then health, animal health, plant health, human health. Every one of these, next generation biology is going to disrupt every single one of these areas. Food, water, energy, anything like that, right? And at the end of it, these are going to be the key things that people will care about. Everything else, systems will take care of it. So you had a comment.
I agree with you when you say biology. I will put it in a little bit broader term. Anything related to the healthcare industry. Yes.
Yeah, healthcare is one part, but I would go further along. I think next generation food, materials,
Which is
climate
part of the
change.
healthcare.
Climate change. We are going to have a huge climate-related issues. We need to clean our things. We need better energy quality. All of those things, I think, bio is going to play a big role in addition to tech. But that's sort of my.
Yeah, I think I had a question on non-technology, but that you've answered. These are some of the non-technology areas that.
But this is technology.
Well, so the question was that in general science studies and non-technology, what opportunities are available in the industry, and how do the kids, they develop to complement their core? What is the skills and competencies they need to develop?
I don't know. Right now, I've been advocating to kids, and I've been talking to so I end up not talking to really school children as much, but I do end up working with the colleges a lot more than the school children, and I've been trying to promote that colleges should do 2 courses. I'm trying to encourage people, and I want to build those courses if possible. One is on how to manage your own money, because I find that kids in this generation, all of you, by the time you graduate, you're going to be having so much money that you wouldn't know what to do with it. And most of you probably already have crypto assets and all kinds of things which are going to be worth a lot already. Some of your parents may not know it, but your savings are probably already in some crypto coins or something. But that aside, the fact is that our kids are going to make decent amount of money, and they are not well equipped to handle it. So this is my opinion and observation from the bunch of people I'm talking to who join the company. All of a sudden they don't know how to manage their money. So I would spend time figuring out money and how to manage money, personal finance. And the other area that I tell everyone is worth doing is learning how to sell. Salesmen are not going to go out of business.
True.
And this is one thing I think Marathi people specifically, right? They think that, oh, I'm engineering, sales, you are correct. But reality is that, sales is really the action is in sales. And I find that techies, especially Marathi techies and all, they get too hung up on this thing. No, sales is sort of, something not Brahman. How many of you are sales guys, other than persistent sales people? Yes, very few people. Right?
व्यापाराचे बावडे तुम्ही म्हटलं असं. विडा.
So, how to handle the stress? Can you guide on that, like in an academic year and at the workforce for the kids, like during pandemic also, kids were working from home, like people were working from home, kids were working from learning from home, so they had some stress already. And even further, when they will go in a workforce or in a colleges, there will be a lot of competition. So how will you guide them how to cope up with the stress?
It's a hard question, okay? Meaning, I don't think I have figured out the answer to that question on how to handle stress or anything like that. But I can give you some ideas on what I find to be very, very useful. So when do you feel stressed? And what, at least for me, I find I'm stressed when I don't feel I'm in control. So if I find that there are things happening which are not under my control, I get very stressed. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. If things are under control, then I feel like, okay, fine, I have a lot of things to do, but at least I'm not stressed about it. So what I have found to be very useful is writing things down. So what I do is I try to make a list of all the things that are on my list, on my mind, or what are bothering me. I write them down. If I have them written down, then I can stare at them and then half my stress is like, okay, fine, all this is I have to do, then I can handle it. Or I can prioritize. Right? So that helps me a lot. So I find that if I'm getting very tense and I'm stressed, it's because there are too many things in my mind and I'm not sure what to do and I feel like I'm completely lost. Right? So if I write things down, then I find at least I know why I'm stressed and then I can figure out which ones are my high stress activities and then things sort out much better. So I highly recommend to kids as well that, keep notes, write things down. You'll find a lot of things become clearer when you have it written down. And a lot of times what happens in our mind is that we mix things up. So we feel like, okay, I have a lot of things to do, I'm very, very busy, I have things not done. And then you find out that, you're thinking about it makes you more stressed. But if you just write down what are the things that are there, okay, these are 3 things I have to finish, I can do this tomorrow morning, these 2 I must complete today. Then you feel like, okay, fine, I'm under control and I can handle it. So that's what I found to be very useful. Of course, there are other techniques that other people will tell you, like, you should meditate and all that. But, those are things that I'm not going to say yes or no on. But, yeah, those are they're helpful. But I find at least to make lists of things that if I know what I'm supposed to do, and if I have clarity on what I'm supposed to do and I know what I'm doing, then life is much simpler. A lot of times that uncertainty creates the stress. I don't know what you guys do. I'm sure everyone has their own techniques on how they handle stress.
I think great suggestions, not only for the kids but also for us to incorporate. Team?
So Anand sir, you work a lot globally, and so can you please explain the significance of being a team player? Like we are now forming a Yuva team, so it will be a great improvement.
Again, see, there are 2 parts I'm going to say here. One is, yes, of course, everyone needs to be a team player, and it's at the end of it, nobody can achieve anything on their own, so you have to work together. But I'm going to not spend too much time on it. I think you guys are not just team players, you're leaders actually. So I'm going to try to flip this into saying that, yeah, you need teams, but you need leaders to lead those teams. And I see you guys as being leaders rather than just team players. So my recommendation to you would be that, give clear. So how do you build good teams and how do you get leaders to work together? So I'm going to give you a few ideas on that. So one is, of course, if you have a clear mission of why you are doing what you are doing, then teams tend to follow that very effectively. So defining a clear goal, thinking this is what I'm trying to do, helps in trying to build teams and getting teams aligned to what your goal is. And if you see this, the sports guys are the best at creating teams and getting motivation and getting people together, and they have these competitions and they have NBA finals, to this. So everyone has a goal that that kind of drives the teams to success. So I think having those kinds of things, having a teams working together and creating excitement and having a mission actually drives the team in a good way. But it's a good thing to be part of teams, but I don't want to spend too much time in this context and saying what does it mean to be a team player. I look to see you guys as being the leaders in your teams, and as you lead your teams, if you are confident, you show them what the way is and get a mission together and get everyone aligned to it, then good things happen.
सो मी आता सगळ्यांना दे आसरा फाउंडेशन जे डॉक्टर आनंद देशपांडेने सुरू केलं, आय एम गोइंग टू शो यू ऑल अ व्हिडिओ अँड वी वुड लाईक टू नो हाऊ the Seattle Marathi community can contribute, how the kids can also contribute. So let's watch the short video on that.
I was totally lost because I didn't know how to start something.
They asked them, what I found was I got everything together at one place. It was a one-stop shop for me. Like I got all the information regarding anything and everything in Deas.
My business has taken up pace now and it's growing faster than ever.
It takes a village to get a business off the ground and a village to sustain it. This is especially true for small businesses. It involves processes such as getting funding, to managing the legal aspects of the business, to marketing, and even performing basic organizational tasks. It also requires passion, a lot of hard work, access to relevant information, and support.
Since the objectives of Deasra is work at scale, we want to create self-employed people and entrepreneurs. We must also look at how many people have we been able to help as an ecosystem. And this is going to take some time and effort, and over a period of time, the number of entrepreneurs we have helped and also how well have we helped an individual entrepreneur. Both of these are important factors when we look at the success of Deasra.
Deasra Foundation is a not-for-profit company. It's an organization that is set up based on the vision of Dr. Anand Deshpande, MBA, CEO and founder of Persistent Systems. Essentially, the whole point of Deasra Foundation is to provide a complete ecosystem which can support small business entrepreneurs, whether they want to start their business or whether they're looking to manage their business well in an organized fashion or to grow.
I was totally lost because I didn't.
So again, how can the Seattle Marathi community contribute to your mission, and are there any opportunities for our Yuva members as well?
Okay, so let me explain what Deasra is. I think this is not really doing it very well. So the idea here is that, see, if you look at India especially, we have about 25 million people at every age in India, below the age of 35. So we need 15 million new jobs to happen every year. And there is no way government and everything is going to create those jobs. So the idea was to help people become self-employed as the key to what we were trying to do as part of Deasra. So our goal is to, so what we have done is we have taken about, we looked at the life of these small businesses, and for each business, for the businesses as such, we have found about 80 or so different processes that these small businesses need to deal with. And for each of those processes, we have templated out them. So these are processes like, how do you get online, how do you be on Google, how do you get bank loans, things like that. And we operate with businesses that are between 1 and 10 employees and that make between 5 lakh rupees to 1 crore. So really small businesses. The photographers, the food counters, people of that kind. And our goal is to make sure that they succeed really. So that's really what we are focused on. And so far we have about 150,000 businesses that we have helped in this whole context. So that's really the overall story of what Deasra is. Now what can Seattle or people from here do? Well, we are always looking for good ideas on how to make this possible for small businesses to be effective. And we want them to be as self-sufficient or self-propelled as you can expect. So if you have any ideas or suggestions, we will be open to that. If you have any material that you think would be useful to these small businesses, we would be quite open to that. If you want to spend some time talking to these businesses, guiding them, we could probably set that up as well. And I don't know what else you might want to do, but that is the group that we are working with, and if you have any ideas or suggestions on what you want to work with that particular group, we'll be quite keen to do that. And as I said, some of you who are looking for summer jobs and they want to do a summer job in a Diaspora context, we can set that up too. It's a good place, we can give you some projects in that. It's possible.
तर आता एक शेवटचा प्रश्न आहे, तो मी मराठीतच विचारते तुम्हाला. जीवनातील खऱ्या आनंदाबद्दल उपस्थित राहिलेल्या या मुलांना काय सांगू इच्छिता?
मुलांना त्याचा अर्थ कळणार आहे का काय विचारलं
You translate the question in English.
I doubt very much.
I think it's not. I think kids should not worry too much about other things. Live in the present and do the best you can in the context you are in. Is what I would leave it at.
I think just a follow-up, like, what has been your greatest lesson coming out of this pandemic? I think that I'm curious to know.
So I have used my pandemic very effectively. I have spent a lot of good time doing things. I have not been going to the office, working from home. I was traveling like crazy. The fact that I didn't travel for 2 years, I really was very. I benefited from that pandemic in that sense, but it has been tough. So as part of Diaspora, we saw a lot of very small businesses suffer through this pandemic. It was very tough for businesses in general. So I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen again. That's all I can say. But yeah, maybe I don't know what to tell you.
Sure. We'd like to open the floor for questions. So kids and others, feel free to ask. I know Praveen, I think you had a question.
Yes, I can go if you want. So your take on middle and senior management relevance of there, and considering post-pandemic work from home culture, that's still going on. Middle and senior level management jobs will not be relevant anymore, or has the process expedited?
I don't know where you are coming from on this one, but I have been quoted by a bunch of guys on this particular topic for about 10 years now. And there is a quote that is floating around, and it came back again from it and Naveen Kabra last week. So I had mentioned that, I believe that middle managers have no role to play in the future, because all they do is forward links. This is a quote that got amplified in multiple places. And the reality is that, the pandemic, in my opinion, has only accelerated that process, because there is no room for just people who forward mails on both sides. That was the point of view. So people have to do their own things. That's sort of where it is. So the middle management as such is going to shrink, is my opinion. And people have to do things. Beyond that, I don't know what you have in mind. There's some area motive in this question.
The next question, the follow-up would be, what would be your advice? So whoever is in such roles at the moment, how should they start transitioning, or what would be your perspective?
Okay, so let me give you a slightly more useful answer to your question. Okay, so I run workshops for people on how to manage your career. And I'll give you this one slide summary of what I do 2 hours on this. But I'll tell you one 5-minute overview on what that 2-hour session is on. So what I tell people is that in your first 10 years of your career, focus on learning and networking. Okay? And the important thing is you have to learn and learn to network. Because if you don't do it in your first 10 years, you will not be able to do it later. It doesn't mean that you don't do learning and networking after 10 years. But if you don't figure out how to do it in your first 10 years of your career, it will be very difficult to do it later. So that's the motivation. So when you are learning, you learn as many different things, it doesn't matter. And the risk of trying out new things when you are in your first 10 years of your career is very low. Meaning, I could have taken that risk of going back to India and starting Persistent at 28, but I would have never done it if I were 38. Because, what's the risk? If it fails, I come back, 1 saal, nobody bothers, right? At that situation, this doesn't matter a lot. So first 10 years, the goal should be learn to learn and learn to network. The second 10 years are most important. This is where the middle management gets me. So what I found, and I'll tell you why this whole thing came about and why did I create this story around this. Yeah, I meet a lot of people in the mid 40s, and they are the dukhiest people in the world. Seriously. And I interview a lot of people, and you meet people all the time. And here's what you hear a lot. Say, oh, I have 20 years of experience. What is your experience? I work here, I work here, I work here, whatever. So you ask a guy, so okay, you have 20 years of experience. So what does that mean you are? What can you do? And that people are not able to answer. So what my opinion is, in the second 10 years, it's important for people to become an expert at something, and the world should say that you are an expert at it. So if you say I'm an expert middle manager, then you have value. If you say you are middle manager because you are neither an expert at something, neither are you the boss, so you are somewhere in the middle, then that has no value. So I don't want to meet people who are saying that, I have 20 years of experience, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. But I say, okay, so what has that 20 years done for you? And you're not able to answer that question. Then it's a problem. Another way to look at it is that at any stage, especially after the first 10 years, you should always be able to answer this question for yourself. What do I do today that someone 5 years younger can't do? Because someone 5 years younger can do the job I'm doing today, then I don't deserve to be doing that job at the price that I'm demanding. Right? Means somebody should give it to the guy who's 5 years younger. So every year beyond 10, first 10 years is very easy to show that you have learned new things. Beyond 10, it's not that easy. But that is the key to success. So in your next 10 years, you have to really become an expert at something, and the world should say that you are an expert at it. So that's my theory for the second 10 years. Now, what do you do in your third 10 years? Now, what happens is by the time you're looking at third 10 years, you're in your early 40s. Now, organizations start to change, and to some extent, happiness is a function of meeting your expectations. So at the early 40s, what I recommend to people is you figure out what your corner office is going to be and adjust it to be realistic. So don't try to assume that you're going to be the CEO of Microsoft unless you have a plan to get to that. Right? Meaning, of course, somebody's going to be there, but not everybody is going to be there. So you have to figure out a way to make sure that from 40 to 50, you have no more than 3 steps to get to your final corner office. Okay. And then the next 10 years are even more interesting in different ways. So I've been reading a book about this for a while, and there's a very interesting author, if you want to take a look at. His name is Arthur C. Brooks. He has a course on happiness at Harvard. And he talks about this thing that your professional decline may be earlier than you think. So his point is that there are certain kinds of skills that the younger people tend to do well, and then you have to get into a slightly different kinds of skills in your 50s and above, because if you don't do that, then you will not survive. So there's a whole bunch of things around how do you manage your career from 50 onwards, because you only work till 80. So beyond 50, you need to position yourselves in a slightly different way so that you have different skills. You're creating next levels of leaders, you're mentoring, coaching and all that. And when your payroll stops at 60, which is the case in India at least, you still have enough things to do that you can be contributing to the society or the community or whatever it is. So that's really the theory that I tell people. So in that context, if people are in the middle, right, you could get stuck in this la-la land where you are not deep enough, you're not staying current, you're doing something where all your value addition, you feel you're very busy because all you're doing is sending mails forward from one end to the other end, the other end to this one. But that router has got limited shelf life.
Great.
Yeah.
I think you have seen 2000s .com boom. So right now there is a lot of stuff happening around pandemic, Russia and Ukraine, COVID. So there is a lot of debate going around centralization versus decentralization. So a lot of use cases are coming out of decentralization, and it is like Web 3.0 again boom. So 90% of it scams. So what would be your advice, like how young generation should create path?
So I've spent the last 1 year really studying through this whole crypto, Web3, decentralization, DeFi, DAOs and all that. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of scams in this thing, no doubt about it. But I think there is enough meat in it. So I see a very much the same kind of situation like with the 2000, like you pointed out. A lot of the companies and tech that you see now may not survive 5 years, but many things that will evolve from this will survive a very long time. I think there is some meat in this one. So my recommendation is study this before you jump into it. But I would not ignore it. I mean, I would not say that the entire thing is not going to happen. I really believe that there will be enough applications that you will see which will become mainstream in the next 3 to 5 years, which completely depend on the principles of decentralization.
There's probably going to unlock like a lot of things like art, like biomedical, everything will come together.
We'll see. A lot of things will happen. You're right.
So if there is a possibility of parallel coexistence of both centralization and decentralized
Yeah.
applications.
Yeah, because see, the thing is, okay, let's go back one step. What is the real fundamental reason for decentralization is understanding of trust. Who do you trust? That's the key. Now, for certain applications, it's fine to trust somebody. Government, banks, whatever you want to pick, organizations, companies. There are certain systems for which trust is important, and it's fine to trust these kinds of organizations. So for them, centralized systems work fine. They're more efficient, they're more effective. But there are certain things where we want to do exchange of value amongst people we don't trust. And that concept today is not very well articulated in the centralized system. You have to trust someone to make that happen. And the power that, because of the way they are set up for these kinds of things, the centralized guys have way too much power to control what might happen to individuals. So decentralization has an opportunity to basically replace that with systems rather than forms.
So you also believe in like network state of cities, for example, in Pune, like airport issue is going on from like multiple years. So can people form their decentralized autonomous organization and pitch together and like create like crypto city and build their own airport? Like something to this happen. Like because you mentioned like in early 90s there was a concept of like software park or something, so something like that.
No, actually, what you are saying is actually true. We have been talking about some of these things in the context of the Pune airport. I've been looking at something similar around small businesses as well. Because financing small businesses around the ones that we work with at DSRA are very difficult. Because the government systems, the centralized systems are not very conducive to doing this. So some DAOs would work very well on that. But let's not distract today's conversation in that. But I'm very intrigued by. No, but what you're saying is interesting actually, but it's still a little bit not that easy to pull off. Let's get the young kids to ask it.
So I have more of a leadership question. It's a little bit vague. So when like you start a company, a lot of people look at like the default hierarchy of like employers, managers, like board, and then a president. Do you find that like a little bit off, like where like sometimes that can lead to problems, and how can you change that type of hierarchy?
Actually, it's not like that. When you start a business, you are the chaprasi of the team. And the deal is that if someone is coming, cleaning the place, so where should I keep the jhadu? Ask this guy, he would know where to put it. So the founder is the basic chaprasi of the business. Actually, so the hierarchy is only. Huh?
English. I don't know whether you will understand chaprasi.
Yeah, I'm sure you understand. No, what is chaprasi? Basically, the lowest guy in the organization. Yeah. So the janitor. So the point here is that when you are a founder, right, you are not the boss actually. Everyone else is your boss because you want to get the work done from them. And the founder is only mission driven. He doesn't care about the hierarchy that much. And that's how small businesses start. The hierarchies start to happen when politics starts, which happens after a while. And these organizational structures are best for the family members. Within the organization, the structure kind of has very little relevance. Because finally the job has to get done, right? So it doesn't matter who you are asking, all these things are all kind of not terribly relevant, but outside they become very relevant. So anyway, don't think too much about it. I think you are a leader. Leaders don't have to be anything, they can be anywhere in the organization, or you can be a leader and you have a tribe following you. And these decentralization that he's talking about is going to happen in this kind of world anyway. I think we are heading into a gig world. We'll see more and more of this gig economy where people are going to be doing many jobs at the same time. You may be a leader in some projects, you may be doing something else somewhere else. So these are going to be very flexible. So the hierarchy part, I don't think you should worry too much about it.
Maybe for the student is maybe very interesting how to deal with the failures. So it may be pertain to your business as well, right? You have the idea which you pursued and didn't work out and I got lost. And the same thing, they choose the career path or choose a subject where I should not have chosen that subject because it didn't go well.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with?
So I think the best way to deal with failure is to have the next day. Basically, what happens when you fail is you fail. You feel very bad. There's a new day. You start again. So whoever survives whoever is persistent survives. And the best examples of this are from sports actually. So if you look at somebody who is you take any sports guy, right? You take any sport for that matter. So if you give up after you have failed the first time, you will be done. Everyone who wins an Olympics medal or anything else, when he started out, he has not won the first match. The fact that he came back the next day and kept at it made him successful. So when you look at business as well and you look at persistence, have you had failures? Of course you have had failures. All the time. Every day in life you have things that work, some things don't work. The reality is that those who say, okay, it's failure now, what do? I'm stuck, I cannot move further, they remain there. Those who say, okay, fine, I failed, but now what? I'm feeling very bad. Okay, you sleep, next day, get up and start again. And it's a new day and you hope the best happens. And eventually, you figure it out. So it's not like, I find that in general, maybe this is not true for the some catastrophic failures, but by and large, most of the time in everyday life, we see things that don't go as we expect. How we deal with it is what makes the difference. So I think all of us have that ability, and usually, I find the sports kind of guys are the best at looking at it. And part of the reason why parents ask you to play sports is to have that chance that you failed, but you still next day you did fine. So just imagine you're standing at a boundary line and you have a ball and you dropped. Finish, your career can be done, but you can come back the next day. If you look at baseball, they score 1 out of 3. So is there 2 failure? 1 out of 3 is actually a pretty good score for if a batter is getting 33 average, 0.3 average, he's doing very well. So it's all about getting back again is what makes success happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I know networking is something you should just do, but any tips that can expand on whatever you say, learn to network, particularly in the extrovert ideal world.
The good habits in that network.
That's a very good question, and I'll tell you the way I like to ask you to think about it is to find out for yourself. And the question I would ask you, from the other way around, you meet a lot of people. People who are traveling next to you on the plane, do whatever else, right? You remember some people, but you don't remember others. Right? Why do you remember some people and not the others? So what is it that they did that made you remember them versus those who didn't do that? So what do you think? Now, so when I talk about networking, just to think about this question that I've thrown at you for a moment, but I'll give you why I think this is important. When I say you should network, what does that mean? That, we have met, you know me, but I also should know you and I should remember you. So when I need you, I should be able to call you back. Or if you need me, you should be able to call me. So I'm a sales guy. When I go to a meeting, I go to the meeting, and do our story. But the guy who's listening to my pitch listens to pitches like me every day. So he forgets me, he doesn't remember me at all. So that whole meeting would be completely wasted. So the reality of the meeting is that the only thing that needs to happen on that meeting is that he should remember you so that he can call you when he needs you. Because during the meeting he's not going to buy anything. So how do you remember some people and not remember other people, right? That is the crux of networking. So now tell me, why do you remember some people and not remember other people? And think about common people you traveled on a train together, you were in a bus together, you went to some place you traveled in Italy and there were some people you met there and you still remember them. Yeah, go ahead. Attitude, yeah, but
provide some value, like give them reason to come back.
Yeah, that's very useful actually. So yeah, that is an important thing. If I can leave something with you that makes you think about me after I've left that meeting, right? You have something to chew on it for a while, then you are more likely to remember me. And that is the crux of network. So why would you remember me? If I did something good for you, you'd remember me. So if I liked you on your Facebook page, you'd remember me. Oh, I need that. So these are kinds of things that help. So if you forward your messages, if you make introductions, those kinds of things are people care about. They remember you for. So yeah, at the end of it, if people remember you, and that's the network link that you have to. So doing things together to a point where you leave something for them to think about you gives you that opportunity to network. So this is a very sort of simplistic way of telling you what you should achieve through network. Now, now how do you get to people? Why should people listen to you and all that? You'll find that people also are interested in getting networked. Okay, and it's not a one-way street. Those who like networking want to network. They love networking. They want to meet people. Everyone wants to be part of that ecosystem. Okay, everyone has this thing. Okay, how many how many likes I have, how many this thing. So network effect is very satisfying for people who are in the game, and it becomes a game for people also, by the way. So the point is that people want to network, and I found this out in different ways. Okay, so I'll give you another. So I've written a bunch of articles on how CEOs think differently from non-CEOs. And one of the things that I found in CEO attitude is that they like to network a lot. They're more willing to give references, introductions. They love to be introduced to other people, whatever else. So that kind of thing works very well for them. So if you introduce somebody to somebody else, then that's a good way to network. So there are many such techniques that you can use, but the reality of networking, the crux of it is to make sure that they remember you. Otherwise, that whole interaction is a waste. So before you get into a meeting, if you are able to think, if I were to meet this guy, how will he remember? But I have had very good success on this, by the way. So I have people who have traveled with me in trains, buses, whatever, who have come back to me 20 years later, 15 years later, and said, oh yeah, we had this conversation. And I thought you were doing something interesting. But yeah, it works.
So in the context of this, right, here, like in the student cultures, there are clubs, and there are good habits and bad habits in terms of, so I should go into that company, then I'll have a better network possibilities or something like that. It's same thing in business also. You go play golf, right, and then you can crack the business deal. So is the good thing or bad thing from the student's perspective, right, kind of a good networking or bad networking?
No, bad networks can also happen. If you go into people who are doing drugs and other things, it's a bad network. You don't want to be. But I think by and large, from the student's perspective, I think your other peer group is a good network. I'll give you another example of something you should think about. So, and this is a self experiment you should try. Think about your 10 best friends. And think, why are they your best friends? And you will realize that they are your best friends because you did stupid things with them. And you remember them for the time you wasted with them, not for the time you did work with them. So, those are the kinds of things that people care about. It's very weird, but it's not always a very formal thing that helps you build a relationship.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll take two more questions and सगळ्यांसाठी refreshments आहेत, so we'll continue our conversation.
Let's take the young kids.
But yes, please.
You take your question. Let's take his and then.
Okay, yeah. My question was,
a lot of the young kids want to start a company or aspire to start a company. And I heard you say that you started Persistent at 28, I think, and if it was at 38, maybe you wouldn't have done it. So do you think there's a time limit to start a company, or do you think?
No, actually there is no time limit to start a company. But when you are younger, right, your ability to survive with nothing is a lot better. So if I were 38 and if I had wife and 2 kids and all that, then my starting point of what I needed to have to survive would have been so much higher that I may not have done. Let me say that. Now, of course, there is the other form when you say, okay, now I have financially, I'm okay, my responsibilities are taken care of, so now I can take a chance. So that might happen after 40, 45, whatever. But 35, 38, I may not have done. Personal story. But that doesn't mean other people might be doing. Now, if you're younger, yeah, I think you should try it. The only thing I'm not a big believer on the Peter Thiel thing that college is not important. At the end of it, having a degree helps. So I had a PhD when I started, right? So there was a very safe backup for me. And I had a network as well that came through the degree. So I recommend to people that, do your degree for sure, because, we are all in a society where without degrees we need that. Parents have to be happy, everything needs to be sent off. You need to get married. So your father-in-law might want you to have a degree. All that stuff. So check off that piece, don't drop off and all that. But while you're doing that, you could be also thinking about many things. And I believe that all of you are really privileged in different ways. So you should be creating jobs rather than sucking jobs out of the system. That's sort of where I'm encouraging.
In an interview setting, what qualities do you see in successful people?
Man, I don't know. In an interview setting, meaning?
Where you choose one guy over the other.
Oh, that way. So okay, I'll tell you what I asked. I don't typically interview right now very junior people at the moment, so I'm interviewing mostly senior people. So in our business, we have 3 things that are most important. Okay, one is ability to bring business. The second is being some technical domain experts of some kind. And the third is keeping the trains running on time, the manager jobs. So normally when I'm hiring someone, I want to ask them that they should be an A at least one of these. They don't want 3 Ds. Okay, so you don't want somebody who can do everything but can't do anything that well. So when you're looking at senior leader people, you want somebody who is really good at something. It doesn't matter if he's a sales guy, he better be a very good sales guy. It doesn't matter if he can't do other things. If he's a techie, he should be really good techie, not I can do some techie, I can also do this, I can also do that. So that's sort of where I'm saying that these mid 40 guys, right? So that's what my other thing is. I need these guys to be an expert at something, not just be one other of them. Now, if you are looking at it from your point of view and how do you do, I think it's about differentiation and being unique. So if you want to be, so in your context now, and what I was saying is appropriate for the 40-year-olds. But in your situation, you're looking at jobs, you're looking at where it is. At the end of it, most people who are hiring, right, they are hiring best available. So best available meaning they are ranking the people that they have in their mind about these are the 5 options. I'm going to pick the best available. So here, uniqueness, differentiation, those things are very interesting. So if you are able to do something that is doing something different, then you have a much better story. And this you will find even when you look at college admissions as well. Same situation, right? So colleges have lots of choices, people show up, they are going to pick the best available. They are going to take their 30 people or 50 people, 30,000 people or whatever their number is, but they have choice, so they have to pick one out of those that is available. So how do you stand out is sort of the key to success. So picking a few areas, doing something different, differentiation and uniqueness, those are traits that you should explore as something that you might want to sort of go after in terms of being interviewing people, those who are successful. Being one of the gang, by definition, would not make you the leader in that sense. You have to be a little bit unique, different in some sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are the important entrepreneurial skills that you would think that would be for someone who is aspiring to start their own startup?
No, say again, what is the skill?
What are the entrepreneurial skills that do you think that it's important for someone who wants to start their own startup?
See, I'll tell you what, in my opinion, to start a startup, the most important thing is to have a customer. No, you're laughing at this, but the reality is I meet so many companies who have no idea what the customer is. They build things because they know how to build it. They're not looking at who's going to buy it. The business is all about trying to make sure that there's a buyer for what you are building. So that is the key thing to do. And if you can figure that out, then everything else follows.
I think
the organizers think that the vadas that
थँक्यू सो मच. नाही तर मी एवढंच म्हणेन, मी एक मुलाखत बघत होतो सरांची, त्याच्यात त्यांनी त्यांचं आवडतं फूल हे निशिगंध असं सांगितलं. तर त्यांचं म्हणजे निशिगंधाचा जसा मंद सुवास आणि दरवळ ही सर्वत्र पसरते, तसंच त्यांच्या कर्तृत्वाचा मंद सुवास हा त्यांच्या सहवासात आल्यावरच जाणवतो. तर हा सुवास सर्वत्र आणि जगभर पसरो हीच सदिच्छा. तुम्ही इकडे आलात आणि आमची विनंती राखून आम्हाला एवढे चांगलं मार्गदर्शन केलं, त्यामुळे तुमचे खूप आभार. तो मी प्रीतमजींना विनंती करेन की त्यांनी पण वोट ऑफ थँक्स सांगा.
नाहीतर डॉक्टर आनंद आणि सीआरटी महाराष्ट्र मंडळातील सर्व मित्रांचे मनपूर्वक आभार इथं आल्याबद्दल, आमच्याबरोबर आज ही संध्याकाळ घालवल्याबद्दल. आणि वी लर्न अ लॉट अबाउट पॅशन अँड कमिटमेंट अँड हाऊ दॅट बिल्ड दिस अँड देन पर्सिस्टंट एफर्ट्स टू बिल्ड दिस पर्सिस्टंट. आणि आय होप आपल्या सगळ्यांना यातनं बरंच काही आत्ता शिकायला मिळालेलं आहे, स्पेशली यंगस्टर्स, अँड दे मस्ट हॅव बेनिफिटेड अ लॉट. आणि आपल्या सगळ्यांसाठी रिफ्रेशमेंट आहे, तर प्लीज जॉईन अस अँड हॅव सम रिफ्रेशमेंट. थँक्यू सो मच.